Hey guys, my name's Skippy from Geek Hammer Gaming, and I am here to talk about more faction focuses. We are going over all the armies in Warhammer 40k and getting an overview of how the army works in the new edition, and I'm very excited to go through all these, so let's go ahead and take a look. The one we are talking about today is the Tyranids, the Great Devourer. The Tyranids are an alien army, seemingly unknowable to those in the Warhammer 40k universe, as they come from another galaxy. They are coming in to devour everything. The way the Tyranids work is they come in, ingest all the biomass to make more Tyranids, and once they have completely devoured an entire planet, they just move on to the next one. They just keep going and going and going, devouring everything in their path. They are a very fun army to play, where you can play them as a very horde army, monster army, or a mid-range army with like Tyranid warriors. Like you have a lot of options in Tyranids, which I really like, and we're getting a bunch of new models, so it'll be super fun to play them, and I cannot wait. I am testing out a new paint scheme for my Tyranids, and I think I might jump in. We'll see what happens. So, first of all, let's go over some rules we got to see in the faction focus. So this one was actually revealed a little while ago in the 10th edition reveals, and this is their detachment rule when you take the invasion fleet. That'll be out of the index. So hyper adaptations, at the start of the first battle round, you get to select one of these hyper adaptations, and all your Tyranids have this ability for the rest of the game. So you got to pick one, but you get to pick a game time, so you can see your opponent before you pick which one you want. So Swarming Instincts is each time a Tyranids model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy infantry or swarm unit, that attack has a sustained hits 1 ability. So super cool. If you're facing down a horde army of a lot of little Gribblies, a lot of infantry, a lot of swarm, then you get exploding 6s on every weapon in your army. That is so cool. Let's just make sure that we get all the hits so we can take care of all the things. Hyper aggression is the second option that you can take. So this one is each time a Tyranids model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy monster or vehicle unit, that attack has lethal hits. Lethal hits is 6s to hit, auto wound. This makes knights even run away from termagants, as they're going to be laying down a lot of fire and just auto wounding a bunch. I am a big fan. I like the flexibility of all this. So High Predators is the third one. Each time a Tyranids model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy character unit, if a critical hit is scored, that attack has a precision ability. We haven't actually seen the precision ability yet, but if I were a guessing man, I would say that if you get a critical hit, you get to apply that wound to the character instead of your opponent allocating it wherever they want. So they basically all become snipers. On 6s to hit, you get to target the character, so that means you can take out a lot of these buff characters. It's in a lot of armies and actually do some real damage to them, which again, all three of these are great options. Tyranids are going to play very uniquely depending on how you want to play them, and they're going to be very adaptable. I know it's a shock. They're adaptable. They're going to adapt to whatever enemy you're facing and have the tools to deal with them. I love it. Now, this is what we got today. So, army rules. These are just army rules you get for playing Tyranids. Doesn't matter what detachment you are. This is what their army rules are going to be. So, Shadow in the Warp is a ability that you get being a Tyranids army. So it doesn't matter what detachment you end up taking whenever you get your book. This is something that you will have, Shadow in the Warp. So if your army is all Tyranids, once per battle, you can force everybody on the table to take a battle shock test. Every enemy unit must roll leadership. So for those of you who weren't paying attention to the Phases of the Game article that came out a few weeks ago, the basic idea is in your command phase, everybody who's like under half strength or is battle shocked for any other reason must take a test. This forces a test on everybody in the enemy army. So you roll 2d6 against your leadership. Most leadership is 6 plus, 7 plus, or like 8 plus, somewhere in that range. Sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but the higher it is, the worse it is. So you want lower leadership to be better. So what you do is if you have leadership 6, you roll 2d6. If you roll a 6 plus, you pass the test. If you roll below your leadership value, you fail the test, and bad things happen. There are 3 things that happen to you if you fail your leadership test. First of all, you cannot have stratagems issued to you. That one's a big deal. So all of a sudden, you cannot use any cool things for your guys to be able to be more effective. Number 2, if you decide to fall back, you must make a desperate breakout test. We don't know exactly how this one works, but this kind of reminds me of the stratagem in ninth edition where um, if you were trying to desperately break out by like moving over models out of engagement range, you roll dice, and on one you each a model died. So it's going to be probably something similar like that, maybe mortal wounds, maybe death. We don't know yet, but either way, you're going to be taking some casualties for trying to fall back at any time. And the last one is your objective control stat becomes 0. So this one is kind of crazy where you usually score points at the end of your command phase. So if you do this test and you have like a couple models on an objective, but you're being outnumbered on a bunch of them, make everyone take a leadership test when you're ready. And if the people on the objective fail it, all of a sudden, hey, it's my objective now. How nice is that? So this is a big deal. I love how this plays. I love how they just unleash some psychic crazy shadow in the warp to mess with everyone's mind, and everyone freaks out when they decide to unleash this attack. Super fluffy, super fun. I am a fan. The other one is the other army rule that you get is synapse. So if you're all Tyranids, you will be. While a Tyranids unit from your army is within 6 or one or more synapse models from your army, that unit is said to be within synapse range. Each time a Tyranids unit from your army makes a battle shock test, if it is within synapse range of your army, take that test on 3d6 instead of 2d6. So that really helps with a lot of these swarm units that have very low leadership. But basically the idea is if you're in synapse, you're going to keep control of your guys. Now, you used to be fearless in synapse, but I have a feeling that fearless is going to be a thing that is not around as much anymore. Because it's not like models are dying to leadership. Now it's just you're not as effective. So that's totally fine. I kind of like that things won't be running away anymore, but they will be shocked to the point where they cannot do cool things. So this one mitigates your bad leadership if you have synapse around, which is a big deal. So if someone forces a battle shock, like say a Tyranids army who forces everyone to do battle shock, or let's say a Night Lord style army that will also force leadership against you. This way you can mitigate all that, and 3d6 even on like a 7, 8 plus is not bad, and that's the equivalent of having like a 4 or 5 plus on 2d6. So feels really good. I'm glad they have it, and it mitigates their own leadership while they also have access to mess with other people's leadership by forcing them to take battle shock. So them messing with everyone's mind through shadows in the warp and synapse is great. So next we got some data sheets. First up, we're going to take a look at some Gene Stealers. Now, Gene Stealers have classically been a very good unit or a very bad unit because they're so fast that it's hard to balance them. And looking at this, it looks like I think they found a sweet spot here for their rules. And I'm interested to see how they end up playing and if they see play in the game. So, stat sheet. So they move 8 inches, which is fast. That's really good. T4, which is nice. 5 up safe, not as nice. 2 wounds though. Gene Stealers have gone up a wound, so they're much tougher to chew through. You got to really put some damage into them to take them out. Leadership 7 plus, which is average. So we'll see how they do in leadership, but they are synapse. I always forget about that. So since they are synapse, they'll be rolling 3d6 against leadership. So 3d6 on 7 plus, totally fine. And then objective controlled 1 because they are in like an elite style unit, so they won't be holding objectives very well. But their core abilities, they have a Scout's 8-inch move. They haven't shown Scout yet, but if I were a guessing man, I'm assuming it's a pre-game move, and everyone with Scouts alternates their Scout moves. It's basically how Scouting worked in 9th edition, where a lot of Tau units would have this free pre-game move, and I believe the Gene Stealers will work the same way with Scouts. On top of that, they're also synapse creatures, so they give out synapse, which is super great. I love that. They give me a mobile synapse bomb, which is very nice to keep a lot of other people in line, like a lot of your other hordes and monsters and stuff like that. because now monsters actually have to take leadership, which is going to be a problem for them. So them being basically fearless now is not a thing. And then Vanguard Predator. This is one of their special. This is their special rule. So Vanguard Predator. This is their special rule. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. If the target is within range of an objective marker, reroll the wound instead. So no matter what, they're already being affected by rerolling wounds of 1. But if you're taking an objective, which they don't hold the objective well, but they'll hold the objective real well if they kill everything by rerolling all their wounds. So their weapons, they have Gene Stealer Claws and Talons, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, hitting on 2s at strength 4 -2, 1 damage. That's a pretty decent stat line. That'll chew through a few Marines, and it's enough attacks with the rerolls to wound on strength 4 that you're going to be tearing some people apart, especially small infantry and stuff like that. So their objective control 1 is not as much of a hindrance if everything is dead. So let's go to a big boy now. We're talking, of course, about the Swarm Lord, the named Hive Tyrant on foot with 4 swords. 4 of them. I love this model. It's one of my favorite models I have in my collection. So, Swarm Lord, he moves 8 inches, T10. Not as tough as Gilliman or a Rhino, but he's right up there. He's a tanky boy. 2 up save, 10 wounds, 7+ leadership, which is weird. Tyranids, it's hard to judge their leadership because everything in Synapse is making a 3d6. So they're taking 3d6 tests, but they have like lower leadership. It's very weird. And objective controlled 3, which is not bad for this guy. He actually can take some objectives from people with some people around him. So core abilities, Deadly Demise, which is the I explode on death rule, and he is a leader. Faction, Shadow in the Warp, and Synapse, so he's got both those things going on. Hive Commander. At the start of your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, you gain 1 CP. Bonus CP. I love it. We looked at Gilman the other day, who lets you do a stratagem for free, even a duplicate on a unit per turn. So this is not as good as that, but extra CP is great. You'll all of a sudden be doing a lot more stratagems. Malign Presence, 1 per battle. After your opponent uses a stratagem, if the model is the Warlord and is on the battlefield, it can use this ability. If it does, until the end of the battle, increase the stratagem's cost to your opponent by 1 CP. Now, in a game where supposedly we're going to start with like 0 CP to start the game, making something cost an extra is a big deal. That's a lot of CP all of a sudden. If you're like, oh, I have 1 CP stratagem that wrecks you. How about it costs 2 now? Now you have to spend both your CP you get through the whole battle round to use this 1 stratagem. Are you going to do that? It's a good call. I don't know if you are. And then lastly, Domination of the Hive Mind. While a friendly Tyranids unit within 9 of this model, the unit is within Synapse range. So classically, Hive Tyrants had better Synapse range, and this is what this is saying. They got a 9-inch Synapse range, which is great. So range weapons. He has a Psychic Torrent Synaptic Pulse. So Psychic is a psychic attack because he is a Psyker. And then Torrent is a flamer weapon, basically. So you automatically hit your target. No need to roll to hit. So 18-inch range. D6 plus 3 attacks. Not bad. That's on average like a 5 or 6 or 7. Strength 5 -1, 2 damage. So these psychic attacks have been interesting because I'm used to just doing mortal wounds, but they're doing an all right amount of damage. Like, they're a good gun. They're not an amazing gun, and they're not mortal wounds. Like, it'll be interesting to see how Psychers work. I'm really curious to see the Thousand Sons or Grey Knights faction focus and see what they're going to be doing for these super psychic heavy armies. Because, like, Tyranids are also a very psychic heavy army, and right now, so far, all I've seen is just a gun. Like, I'm curious how this is going to work out. Anyway, and then he's got his melee weapons, which is Bone Sabers, which is Twin Links, so he's going to be rerolling all his wounds. He's got 8 attacks hitting on 2, Strength 9 -2, 3 damage, rerolling all. Strength 9 rerolling all wounds. That's a lot. I like it. I like that it's Strength 9. It's a weird kind of in between, but you're also Twin Links, so you're being pretty effective against most everything. You're wrecking anything that is like T4 or below. They're just taking all the damage. But you're also actually punching up into tanks. Like 5s to wound re-rolling is not bad against tanks when you're doing 3 damage chunks at a time. Like you won't kill a tank outright in one attack, but you will do a decent amount of damage. I'm a big fan of this guy. Again, I can't wait to compare him to other Hive Tyrant variants, like the Winged Hive Tyrant or the Foot Hive Tyrant, but I'm a big fan so far. So next up, we had a weapon preview. So this is the Rupture Cannon. This is a gun that the Tyranids carries. This is their big anti-tank gun. And we saw yesterday in the Space Marine review that the anti-tank guns are not joking around, all right? They're here to play, and tanks are not safe. So the Rupture Cannon is a heavy weapon, which heavy is if you stand still, you get +1 to hit. That is a classic Tyranids rule that now is just part of heavy. I'm so glad they're like codifying all these rules into a common keyword that makes it way easier to use. So Rupture Cannon is a heavy weapon with 48-inch range, 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 18. That's a big number right there. AP -4 and 2d6 damage. So the 2d6 damage is a little rough. You're talking on average 7 damage if you get both shots through. Strength 18 is a very interesting number because you're on 2s to wound against T9. So things like the Swarm Lord or other big character monsters like that in that kind of mid-range type of thing are going to get wrecked by this. So it's interesting to see this. You'll be wounding most vehicles on 3s. I'm very interested to see how this gun does. I've always been a big fan of the acid spray, the flamer. So it'll be interesting to see if you have a good anti-tank option with something like the Exocrine to make it so this guy can be your anti-horde option with the acid spray. I'm really curious, but it's a very interesting gun. Like 2d6 is just so unwieldy. Like I wish it was a little bit better on the damage, but we'll see how the whole overall model ends up. So lastly, we have a stratagem, Endless Swarm. This is one of your Tyranid evasion fleet stratagems. Using your command phase and up to 2 Endless Multitude units from your army that are within synapse range of your army, or 1 Endless Multitude unit from your army. So basically, there's a lot of these stratagems that are like this, where it's like, so if you fulfill a requirement, you get much more out of the stratagem. We'll see that again tomorrow in the Chaos Space Marine one that came out earlier this morning for me. I am a big fan of the Chaos Space Marine one and how they did it, and this one also. So basically, you get 2 units if you're in Synapse, 1 if you're not, and then you get D3+3 destroyed models returned to the selected units. So things that are Endless Multitude are going to be Termagants, Hormagaunts, the new Neurogaunts, so all your swarm units, essentially. I'm assuming Rippers are too, but I haven't seen that yet. So let's take a look at the Termagant datasheet so you can get an idea how powerful this is. So Termagants are traditionally a 10-man to 20-man model unit. They have a decent amount of shooting. You take a Flesh Boar, which is assault, so you can be moving fast with them. They move 6. You can be advancing and shooting, hitting on 4, strength 5, AP, nothing, damage 1. But the other big thing about them is the Skulking Horrors, where once per turn, the enemy moves a normal, advance, or fall back within 9 of this unit, and it's not within engagement range, you can make a normal move up to D6. So you can scurry back, you can move up to screen them. So you're going to be throwing these guys away a lot by moving up and then moving out of position. And just screwing up a lot of charge lanes and just getting in the way of people in general. And the problem is when you lose these guys, you need them back to stand in the way to protect all your dudes. So getting D3+3 of these guys back feels really good. I like this stratagem, and I like that they went to D3+3 instead of just D3 models. As someone who plays demons and would get D3 models back on all my horrors, all my bloodletters, all up in a turn, I'd be like, oh, D3, a 1, 1, 2, 1. I like that it's min 4. That feels really good. So I'm happy to look at these Tyranids, and they look really good. So thank you guys for coming out. I'm having so much fun going over all these. Don't forget to come back tomorrow when I'll be talking about Chaos Space Marines, also one of my personal armies, and I cannot wait to see how much shenanigans they are up to. Thank you. Please like and subscribe. Really helps me out, and I'll catch you guys next time.